Network. You can probably hear me a lot better now than you did live. Those of you in podcast land won't hear that first part at all. It's fine, no problem. Guess what? We went over the three quarters of the WWE's Elimination Chamber matchup. I have Kevin Owens winning, no question. He's going to beat Sami Zayn. Chris King has Kevin Owens winning. Rod doesn't even think that anyone's going to make it through the match. Did you even pick? Did you pick Kevin Owens, Rod?
I didn't pick the match. You've caught me this
I've done
time.
that
I've
twice.
tried so
Yeah.
hard to not make a pick every time that you've gone to me on the thing. But I'm actually gonna pick Sami Zayn here. I think that
Okay.
I think we're gonna pick Sami Zayn because I think we have to continue with KO being a crazy person. I think that's really the only story we can tell right now. So the only way for him to continue being a crazy person is if he gets beat again.
I think the hometown heroines, Trish Stratus and Tiffany Stratton, will defeat Nia Jax and Candice LeRae, who, by the way, is Canadian. Rod and Chris are on the opposite ends of that one. Elimination Chamber match. I believe Bianca Belair is going to win. Rod believes that, who else? Naomi is going to win. And Chris King picked Alexa Bliss to win.
The correct
Now,
answer.
sure.
That's ridiculous.
Now we are going to
Alexa
go.
Bliss is only back for one reason, and that's
Go.
to prop up the Wyatt Six yet again.
And that
And
is
the
to
Wyatt
win.
Six, no.
The
The
Elimination
Wyatt Six is
Chamber
nowhere
match.
near the championships, Chris. You know this. And Alexa Bliss is back to be with them. It's terrible.
The men's elimination chamber match. Chris, you are picking two people to win this, I believe. You've picked John Cena and Drew McIntyre. How is that
No.
possible?
That's the only two people I can accept winning this. If it's not John Cena, it has to be Drew. If it's
Well,
not
who's gonna
Drew, it
win
has
then?
to be John.
Who's going to
John
win?
Cena is the person I want to see win the most.
Okay,
It
Rod,
is.
you mentioned something really cool in the before times here where give us your CM Punk theory here.
Listen, I called that CM Punk was going to be in the main event of WrestleMania at the end of 2024, right? Like I just started seeing
Sure.
the writing on the wall there. I was quite surprised to see him get dumped in the Rumble. Thought it made an awful lot of sense there, but I'll speak more on that when we get to the heat list. Tease there for the
Ooh.
folks in podcast land. I'll get more on that because I think the heat list spoke to something there. But I think CM Punk is going to win the Elimination Chamber match, and I think he's going to end up getting screwed out of his WrestleMania match by The Rock yet again, calling back to something that happened in the WWE of lore. And Jim, you can fill in the blanks a little better there than I can.
That's beautiful. Yeah, CM Punk lost the championship to The Rock at the Royal Rumble when Rock came back a few years ago, so he and John Cena couldn't have the match at WrestleMania. CM Punk was hot back then. I mean, he was number one on the Heat list until The Rock came back. Then he was number two on the Heat list. I really like that, Rod. I really, really want that to happen. I think John Cena's going to win it though. For some reason, I
See,
just
but
think they're
don't you
gonna
think
do
we
what they
got to
wanna
we
do.
got to dangle that carrot longer, Jim? Like we can't put John Cena in a title match already. We want it. We this is the year of Cena. We can't like cash it out in April.
Yeah, but we don't want him to have the title right before he retires, where there's a chance he retires with the title. Do you? Do you want to have that happen?
Why not tournament, Chris? You love tournament. Why not John
Yeah.
Cena do what's right for business and just put the title down? Then we got a tournament.
Yeah,
Won
I
by
can handle that.
Omos. Let's go. Won by Omos. Let's go.
Omas. So I wanna ask you guys a question, right? Because
Sure.
I don't know. I'm kind of a big Will Sasso fan, right? And he is a big wrestling fan as well. And he put a theory out that I want to ask you guys if you kind of agree or think this could be a possibility because CM Punk has a favor from Paul Heyman coming. Is there a scenario where he can lose the Elimination Chamber, cash in a favor with Paul Heyman, and we end up with some sort of weird four-way match for the championship at WrestleMania with Punk, Rhodes, maybe a Rollins, and somebody or a Cena or something to that effect?
Well, I mean, how much power do you think Paul Heyman has as the special counsel to Roman Reigns? Like, is he just making matches now? Like, I don't understand that. I mean, I'd love that match, but I don't understand how Paul Heyman gets us there.
His name is Paul Heyman. He does
Or
get stuff done.
does The Rock do something there and Punk calls his favor in and it's Roman Reigns that comes in to help Punk against The Rock or something like that?
Well, don't you feel like we should probably talk about the weirdest promo cut in the WWE in quite a while, Jim, because it kind of factors in here? Like, what the hell's The Rock talking about, Jim? What the hell is The Rock talking about when he says he wants Cody Rhodes' soul?
It seems like that was a last minute thing that they just decided to do, and I think it kind of was. I want your soul is weird, and then afterwards, did you notice he had the interview where he said, "This is such a great feud, we don't even need a match." Yeah, you do. You need a match. It's wrestling. That's what you do in wrestling. You have matches. So just the storyline itself doesn't make any sense. And I'm not gonna lie, Cody Rhodes should probably not give The Rock his soul, right, Chris? I mean, you sold your soul a long time ago, right?
Listen, I
I could have
let's
gone
not
with
get.
Rod with that. I went with you. I'm sorry.
We're
Either
not
way,
gonna. Yeah, I was gonna say because we're not gonna get into a whole thing because there may not be a
sorry.
soul. But anyways, let's
You
let's
can't
just.
sell it if you don't have it. Gotcha. Okay.
I didn't see it that way. What I saw it as a direct type of homage to the time that I watched a lot of wrestling, where you had the corporate type champ when The Rock working with Vince for a while, right? Like Vince always had his corporate, his champ, the people he wanted to have the belt on, the people that represented the business side instead of the fan or wrestling side. That's how I saw it. I saw it as Rock saying, I want you to be my champ, my corporate champ. I'm the final boss. I need you to be my representative. That's how I saw it.
Oh, it's
I'm all
corporate, all
for
right. It's
yeah.
corporate. They need tickets sold in Toronto. So, hey, everybody, The Rock's going to be in Toronto for this garbage. Cody Rhodes is going to say whether or not he can have his soul. Buy tickets at the last minute. It's corporate, Chris. You're right about that.
Yeah, they just say that. Just I want you to be my corporate champion instead of I want your soul. Like what is that? That didn't make any sense.
Here's what's going on here. Here's what's going on here. I'm not afraid to say it, okay?
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to say it. The Rock has too much power, okay? Nobody's checking that guy. Nobody's editing that guy. He's the only person in the WWE universe who's going to be able to walk out on a live television camera and they're not going to cut him off. They're not going to tell him how long he can or can't talk. So the fact that he's given that free reign, he's going to walk out there. And Jimmy, he vacillated just in that promo. He came out as everybody's Rock. Hey, look at me with the goosebumps. Then he's trashing the audience. I mean, he's just going back and forth. He's just playing for the pops. He's soaking it up because nobody gives a crap about his movie career anymore. So he's back sucking up all the pops that he can in the WWE. And he's too drunk with power. He's too drunk with power. You heard him. He said it himself at the end. Well, you don't even need a match. And I called it a while back that he wasn't wrestling at WrestleMania anyway. So really what I'm trying to say here is people listen to me. I know what I'm talking about.
Boy, Rod is like a self-righteous mark right there. Like he just bought into the whole thing they want him to buy into.
Well, we'll see what happens because you would assume
what thing? What are you talking about? What do you understand? What do you mean I bought into? Then tell me what The Rock's doing if I bought into something.
He's doing exactly what you're saying, but like I think that's the gimmick, right? That's the whole story. He's the final boss. He's supposed to have too much power. We're supposed to be upset that he has too much power. That's kind of how we were with Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon has too much power. Blah, 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 blah. We hate Vince McMahon. That's exactly what they're doing, and they got you. That's what I feel like. They get me a lot. It feels like they got you. Like you got mad. You're real hot. You're like, no, he has too much power. Exactly, Rod. He's the final boss. He's supposed to have too much power.
Look at Chris. He's
been that happy about anything in a while. Happy about things. That's terrific.
You know what I'm happy about? Yes.
I'm happy about the heat list. I love the heat list. We every year, usually twice a year, we talk about the top 10 most heated people in the WWE. Gentlemen, we did this last May 1st. Question for you. Who was number one last May? Do we remember?
I know who you guys wanted to make number one is Dom Mysterio. You guys always want to make Dom Mysterio number one when we do the heat list.
I'm going to say not on the heat list last year.
See, you guys finally listened to me. I was the voice of reason around here. I'm going to go with Rhea Ripley.
Rhea Ripley, number one last year. Chris King, who do you think was number one last year?
Roman or Cody?
Roman or Cody. Last year's number one overall on the heat list was Cody Rhodes, number one overall. Number 2, CM Punk. Number 3, Jey Uso. Number 4, Randy Orton. Number 5, Alba Number 5 was Becky Lynch on this list. There's no Becky Lynch photo, so we have Alba Fire in there. Logan Paul was 6, Sami Zayn 7, Drew McIntyre 8, R Truth 9, and Gunta number 10 last year. Now remember, R Truth was in rare form for most of the first half of last year. I mean, he's always been on fire, but he really was even higher last year. Big discussion about Becky Lynch there, Rod. You were anti Becky for quite some time. Chris was more pro Becky, and I was trying to referee like I usually do.
Yeah, because Becky Lynch is this is something you've gotten on me about, Jimmy, is that I call her basically like she's sainted. She's a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? Like it's not fair to put somebody like Becky Lynch there at the heat list because like yeah, of course people are going to be excited to see her, right? Like just anytime that Bret the Hitman Hart walks out, people are going to be excited. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like she's achieved that status. And then during that time she hadn't been around all that much. And then we haven't even seen her since then. So it's just like it's my whole thing, man. Like, hey, I love Hacksaw Jim Duggan, but I'm not going to put Hacksaw Jim Duggan on this list because he's not wrestling. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's where we're at, and Becky Lynch has to go.
Okay, so Becky Lynch, Chris, do you agree that Becky Lynch needs to not be on this list anymore?
Yeah, you have to be on TV to get heat one way or the other.
Agreed. All right, Cody Rhodes. Do you think Cody Rhodes will be on the list?
Yes.
Rod.
I mean, I guess you got to count kids. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's still definitely some excitement for Cody Rhodes, but I mean, I think all of us will admit that it is muted, right? We are getting closer and closer to that. People are maybe sick of Cody Rhodes territory.
So I think we can all agree that Randy Orton is probably not going to be on our top 10 list for the most heat in current WWE, mostly because he's not in current WWE.
That's correct.
All right, let's get
It's a
Randy
bummer
Orton out
too.
of
I
there.
hope Randy comes back.
I hope so too. What about R Truth? I think R Truth is probably not on the top 10.
I
He
wouldn't want
he,
him there last time.
he would. He's like. So I went back and forth on him. All right, I'm just going to get this out there. Right, I think we are getting the like perfect dose of our truth in our broadcast right now. I love every segment he's in, whether he's pretending to do a 3 count on his own opponent in the middle of the
Sure.
ring. I just love every minute of it. I think it's the right amount. That made me not the fact that he's getting used sparingly makes me not want to put him there, but everybody loves him every time he's on the screen. That makes me want to put him at number 10.
Okay. I think we've talked way too much about R Truth on our top 10 list right now. I don't think he's on the top 10 list, but we'll put him on the bubble just for you, Chris, but I don't know if you're going to win that one. What about the rest of the top 10 right now? Do we think Logan Paul is still in the top 10?
No.
Rod?
I gotta say yes, man. That dude still gets booed pretty hardcore anytime the WWE wants to break him out in a place. I
We've
mean,
seen
Okay,
him
so
once since last year, though.
you're right about
anytime that we
that.
have anytime we have a top 10 list, we got to figure out who should be maybe on the list. We're going to put these following people on the bubble. Who do you think should be at least on the bubble of the remaining people that we have? Rod, pick one.
Jacob Fatu.
Oh, where is he? That's not fun. All right, Jacob Fatu is on the list in the top 10. Well, he's on the bubble right now. I think if you're talking over people, I think John Cena's got to be at least on the bubble. I mean, there's no question about that. He's one of the best of all time. Chris King, who you got? Who else should be on the bubble?
I think we should probably put Rhea Ripley there.
Okay, for sure. Rhea Ripley going on the list. I mean Penta. Have you heard of him? Have you seen the reactions Penta's getting people?
Yeah, I'm no luchador supporter, but he's got to be there.
I mean, Rod, and seriously, you're not a luchador supporter at all. I mean, you really aren't. But you have mentioned so many times on how over he's getting.
He's gonna be the Intercontinental Champion at WrestleMania. I think. Like I think somehow we're gonna get him
I
in the
think
IC
so.
match, and he's gonna walk away with with the belt
I
at
think so.
WrestleMania.
I mean, Kevin Owens, come on, he's been off and on the list quite a lot. I think he's definitely back to being maybe on the list.
I think Roman Reigns has got to be on the bubble, Jimmy, which is crazy to say, but I think Roman Reigns has entered territory where CM Punk used to have his name chanted when he wasn't even in arenas. Roman gets that all the time now.
What about our
Oh,
boy
I see where
LA
you want.
Knight? Yeah.
I was gonna say I see where your list went. You could convince me that LA Knight's back on there. I was worried that he might be losing the crowd, but he seems to have gotten him back in the palm of his hand.
And I will put Rhea Ripley on there as soon as I find her. I promise. All right. Anybody else that we need to talk about to put on? Braun Breaker, is he on there?
No, I think we gotta have
No?
Liv Morgan on there.
Liv Morgan, definitely Liv Morgan needs to be talked about.
We just gotta have some more female representation up there. Shout out to the ladies.
Dom Mysterio, yay nay.
So let me jump in here. We'll
Sure.
get this out of the way, right? I definitely think Dom needs to be discussed, and I really think we should discuss if Drew needs to be taken off.
Okay.
What? That's insane.
I I love him. But I don't think he's getting like a real reaction one way or the other, right? I don't think he's getting any kind of over the top heat that I would expect to see. You know, with Dom, we still get the outrageous booing, the craziness. You know, we're getting a little, I feel like there's a little bit of indifference with the crowd when Drew comes out.
See, but I think there's a little more of that with Dom than you realize. I think the new Heat favorites are the New Day.
New Day. You want to throw New Day up there?
I just think, I mean, those guys to me seem to be getting more of the Dom energy that we used to talk about all the time, right? Where like people are just way excited to not even really let them talk. So
Okay. Throw New Day.
fans love booing them. You know what I mean? People love having signs up that say New Day, whatever. You know what I mean? Like they're just they seem to be the hot on the other side of, you know, not being baby faces to me.
I mean, what about Seth Rollins? Are we going Seth Rollins on here?
If Chris is going to make that argument for Drew, which I kind of sort of actually agreed with him as he went on there, I disagreed with him at first, but then as he went on, I kind of sort of made sense. If he's making that argument for Drew, the same's got to be said for Seth.
Okay.
They're both essentially doing the same move, right? Where they're coming out to the crowd and they're like, I know you're going to boo me for this, but, you know, I'm speaking my truth. Like, they're both essentially the same guy. It pains me to say that. Chris is so right about that.
Okay, let's look real quick here on anybody else we have, and then we'll try to get this top 10 going. Shinsuke Nakamura, I don't think he's around enough right now at all. AJ Styles hasn't been back far enough. Finn Balor's kind of in the music. First of all, for Finn Balor is ridiculous. Let's change that back. Alpha Academy's over, but I mean, are they over?
No.
There's one more person that definitely needs to be up there, and I'm gonna just nip this before you go through everybody. It's Chelsea Green.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Where's Chelsea Green at?
She is over.
Chelsea Green definitely has to.
See, Chris got a couple heat lists under his belt now, and look at him. He's making sense.
I just need to find her, and then we'll be good to go to continue to talk.
You could even make a case for Tiffany Stratton. Tiffany time gets big pops.
I'll throw her up there. All right. I don't think anybody else that we are missing.
We're definitely at the just naming guys stage here, so we can start.
Motor City Machine Guns?
No.
All right. Is Jey Uso the number one on this heat list still?
With a bullet, without question, every vote unchallenged.
Chris?
I have to agree, even though I hate it.
Even though I hate it, I agree with Rod. You hate agreeing with Rod, not Jey Uso, right?
Both.
Fair enough. Now I think really we are getting into some rarefied air here. So we have 2 through 10 going up. Who's got to be on the list? I mean, CM Punk has to be on the list, right?
It's Phil. Phil's too. It's Phil.
Yeah, I hate that too. But it's right.
I mean, Cody Rhodes has to be on the list somewhere.
10.
Well, let's leave him there. Sami
Zayn. He's got to be like 5.
Fine.
Let's put
people are singing.
Gunther, do you think he's still on the list as your champion?
I do.
So
I think we got to think about the list this way. Balance it, right? We got to think about, having at least a few people represented on the negative side, and Gunther certainly meets that.
I think us fans, I'm included, are confused by what the WWE wants us to do with Gunther, right? They are pushing heel Gunther hard, right? but he is so good in the ring and so good on the mic that I just want to still see him with the belt on. So it didn't bother me that he lifted up Tozawa to choke him out or anything else he did because he's Gunther. But like
Yeah, but you know what
people,
else he did? I'm sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
I would say but you didn't get the outrageous booing or heel type heat that you would usually get for a villain. So I think you're getting kind of a mixed bag in every audience, and it almost washes each other out. It's very weird. I was paying real close attention because I rewatched that match from Raw.
Good. Um, so maybe either Gunther's in that 10 or he's in that like Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre stage. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I hate it because I want Gunther as a heel to succeed. I think he's a perfect type of dude to have wearing that belt.
I think we're missing the forest for the trees here.
Yeah.
I think that like Chris is saying all of the right things, but like Gunther, that's what he's doing. You know what I mean? Like he's so good on the mic, and we love him so much because we all respect how great he's playing the heel. You know what I mean? Like Jimmy, I've talked to you about this before. I think literally he gives people the sleeper because he knows that makes people angry because they hate that as a finisher. You know what I mean? Like I just think there's so much that goes into the ring general, right? Like the fact that he rarely ever comes out in any kind of flashy garb. You know what I mean? That's his statement about how much all of, you know what I mean? And then when he walks down through the crowd and does the Jey Uso thing, it's powerful. You know what I mean? Like anytime Gunther does something a little different where he gives you a little more of his personality, it's absolutely perfect. I love Gunther.
Okay, so we have 6 wrestlers left. I think that Penta's got to be on the top 10 right now
Yes,
with the way he is going right now. Chris mentioned Chelsea Green. Rod, I think Chelsea Green's got to be on the list.
I totally agree.
She had if she did not have the biggest pop at the Royal Rumble, but she had a top 5 pop at the Royal Rumble easily. And when she got thrown
It's
out,
not
people
fair
were
to
ticked.
compare anybody to Joe Henry's pop at the Rumble, Jim, but you're right.
Exactly.
Hers was up there.
That's why it couldn't have been number 1. But it might have been number 2. It really might have. All right, so we have 4 wrestlers left. Um,
Are we going to put the New Day up as one?
it would be 1. Yeah. It would be.
I think the New Day's got to be on the list. If
Chris?
we're like, or is Gunther still on the list?
Yeah.
All right, because see, that's what I'm saying. I think
Is-
there's got to be somebody else more for hate.
This is for the entire year, correct?
Well, it's tough, Chris, but I mean, it's for. I would say it is probably it's for right now. Who is the hottest right now? And
Then yeah, the
that
New
opens
Day,
it up to interpretation.
the
But,
New Day should be up there. If
okay.
it's
Good for them, by the way. Let's go. I like that.
Absolutely. We were all worried, like, what would the New Day's future going to be? And this heel turn has worked pretty well for him. And Jacob Fatu, you're right, Jimmy. He's got to be on the list.
Jacob Fatu's got to be up there. I mean, does John Cena have to be up there, or is he not around enough still yet?
I just don't think. I think he just gets the goaded Hall of Fame status more than anything else. Honestly, I think.
does-
LA
yeah,
Knight's
that was a
gotta be up.
big fight during the first year because we talked about Rey Mysterio and how much pop he gets every time he comes out, and he got on the list that first year, and he hasn't been back up on there.
Yeah.
I love John Cena right now because it's the first time I've ever got to see him really wrestle, and
So
I
maybe-
still
touch him
don't
on the
know if I
bubble.
put up the. I don't know if I should. Yeah, he's still in the bubble. I think you got to talk harder
Okay.
about Liv Morgan or Rhea Ripley. I think one of those two definitely deserves to be up
That's a
here, and
good
I'm not
point.
sure
We
which
gotta get some
one.
more. Yeah, we got to get some female representation.
or
up
do we
there.
do? Well, let's talk. Let's just do this real quick. What if we put both of them up there?
Okay.
Is there
can we
anybody
cut
on
from
the
the
bubble
bubble right
right
now?
now that you think should replace anyone in the? This isn't in an order yet. This is just people up there. Anybody on the bubble now that should replace anybody above us? And what I'm going to do just to make it easier for everyone to see on YouTube land, instead of going all the way out, I'm going to just move some people around.
You can leave the first two up there. We don't get. We're not probably moving Jey Uso or CM Punk, unfortunately.
Okay. So here we
And
go.
I definitely think I would put Dominic Mysterio up there over somebody else.
Okay. So
And
Dom is up.
I would put him in over either Penta or Jacob Fatu.
No
Oh, dude. Chris,
Wait,
I
listen,
love
if
you,
you're
but-
sneaking Dom on the list, we got to cut Gunther, which would absolutely pain me. I don't want Dom on the list, but if that's what we got to do in the effort of compromise here, which our government cannot do, I'll be fine with Gunther going off the list. But you cannot cut Penta or Jacob Fatu right now.
I mean, Penta and Fatu, Chris. I don't. I mean, Penta's one of the most over people in the company. Don't you
I think
think?
that's I think that's a real recency bias. Here's a guy that's had a name for himself in wrestling
Not
circles that
really, though. That's
God.
the thing, Chris. Like he does, but with a certain segment of people that do not also. I mean, the WWE fans aren't fans that watch all other wrestling, generally speaking. You know what I mean? Um,
The man that just made this argument, Jimmy, had the Motor City Machine Guns as his tag team of the year at the Yeah We Knowies, and he just made that argument to us.
well, hey, for tag team that was an improvement from the year before where I had no one.
valid point. We don't need that up. Okay, so
I'm fine with Gunther going. Jimmy, are you okay with Gunther going? But I still don't know if Dom could be on the list, but I'm okay with Gunther going in an effort to try to get this thing ironed out.
if Gunther's
So
out,
if we think Gunther would have been number 10 on that list, so he's the one that's officially like
I mean,
on
if
the
he's on the
bubble.
bubble, well,
I can listen. I don't have a problem putting Dom in there over Gunther. I don't.
Of course not. You want Dom on the list.
I do think I whatever. I get outvoted.
is
It's
Chelsea
okay.
Green 3?
No.
Is she
Penta's
5?
She could
Penta's
probably be
3.
5.
Penta's 3, Fatu's 4, Chelsea Green is 5, New Day is 6, Cody Rhodes is 7, Rhea's 8, Roman Reigns is 9. That's who needs to come up from the bottom. I'm sorry. People chant Roman Reigns every
Instead of
time
who?
Fatu comes to
Liv?
the ring, every
Liv
time
out?
Solo comes to the ring, every time Jimmy or Jay comes to the ring. Roman Reigns needs to be on this list.
Is Liv out?
She could be.
I mean,
See, I like Liv more than I like Dom right now, honestly.
I don't think Dom should be on the list, but I'm not trying to fight with Chris every chance I get, just most.
I don't. I think. Oh, you know how I feel about Roman Reigns, and I also don't think he's out there enough. Are we going to see him again?
Jimmy, what's
And-
your argument on Roman Reigns then? You know where Chris and I stand. Where do you stand on Roman?
I like Roman over. See, I like Cena over Roman though. I think right now for heat.
Really? Okay.
Well,
You
for
could convince me of that, I guess, maybe. But people don't chant John Cena when he's not there. That to me
That's
is just
true.
a big part of it.
That's true. I think the good news is we do have a lot of people. I mean, look at the on the bubble list right now. We have 10 people on the bubble. Those are 10 really over people right now.
And
That's
yeah,
true.
They really are.
And there's 5 others that we could put up there that are basically pretty over too. I mean,
Sure.
because you
Okay,
get
so I
Seth
think
Rollins isn't on that
we're
list.
all okay with Jey Uso at 1, CM Punk
Unquestioned.
at 2. Is Penta the third most over act in WWE right now?
That's my vote. We know Chris doesn't agree. Jimmy, what do you say?
Well, I think he's more over than Jacob Fatu, even though Jacob Fatu is very over. I think he's over more than Chelsea Green. I don't think he's. See, I think Cody Rhodes is too low on this list.
My Cody Rhodes bias is showing, just the way that Chris's Dom Mysterio bias is showing. Here,
I think honestly, Cody's still pretty over.
he is.
Although this Rock thing is, this Rock thing's messing with him though, isn't it?
that's literally 5 days old.
What are we doing? Why did the old man is arguing recency bias a bunch tonight here? Are you losing your short-term memory? Is that what's happening here?
No.
What if we do that?
Cody 5 is okay with me, I guess, because you got to give the man some respect. I
Well,
get
and
that.
you mentioned it earlier. We got to remember the kids love Cody Rhodes right now, no matter what happened this past Monday.
I have one
we-
problem with that list.
Okay. You have one problem, you said, or you don't?
Yep,
have a
one problem.
What's your problem? Dom
I
Mysterio?
think yes. I just have a huge problem with some of those people on the bottom not being in the list if Dom Mysterio is going to be there.
I think Kevin Owens is more over than Dom right now. I think
LA Knight's the answer.
so. You like Knight. I like
Because I'm just
Owens.
thinking of it this way, Jimmy. Let's put it this way, right? Like we've talked a little bit about, and Chris doesn't like music here, so I'm sorry that he's not going to love this argument. But you and I have talked about how theme music has just been getting, it's a little more homogenized, right? We've even seen some articles on Twitter where some people like their older
Yeah.
versions of songs, not
Yeah,
versus the
for
newer
sure.
ones, right? LA Knight still has that kind of music that when his hits, bam, instant pop, right? And I just think that matters. There's some people that like it takes a couple of seconds to figure out who it is, and then that's not really a pop because you're like, oh, look who it is, and then it all kind of builds, right? But the minute LA Knight's music drops, people are always still way excited, and so I think that matters.
All right, so we're putting Kevin Owens at 1 is what I'm hearing there, and that's the list. Sound good?
That's true though. People do love KO stuff. They do.
Yeah, they do. I just put KO there because I wanted him there. Chris.
I think you guys did this on purpose to make me choose between LA Knight and Dom Mysterio, right? This is what you guys do? You think of crazy ways to torment your buddy?
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. It was either him or Drew, and I decided that LA Knight would actually torment you more because you did your piece about Drew earlier.
All right, if we put Dom down, Chris, how hurt is your heart?
It's not hurt except for the fact that Roman Reigns is on the list and we have Jey Uso and CM Punk 1-2. Those are the only things that still hurt my heart.
Other than that, you're fine with the list. I love it, Chris. Our heat list for it is February 27th, 2025. Number 1, Jey Uso. That didn't even really spark any. We didn't even talk about the number 1 person on the heat list because it's so obvious that he's the number 1 person on the heat list. CM Punk, number 2. Penta.
What is it?
Good for Penta. Number
What's
3.
What's the 2-word phrase? What's he say? What's no fear? How do you say it?
Cien miedo.
There you go. Yeah, it's all. I'm in. Listen, I'm in.
I love it. Jacob
there's not a boring part in any of his matches, that's for sure.
There isn't, especially when he gets 2 feet out the Rumble. Jacob Fatu, number 4. Cody Rhodes, number 5. Chelsea Green, number 6.
Chelsea Green, shout out to Chelsea Green's social media presence as well. Just absolute shout out to Chelsea Green on social media. My goodness.
The New Day making, I believe, their first trip to the list at number 7. Rhea Ripley, number 8.
Day came.
Roman Reigns, number 9. LA Knight, number 10. On the bubble, honorable mention, however you want to say it. Let's give it up for the ladies. We have Liv Morgan and Tiffany Stratton, who are extremely over. Dom Mysterio, very over in a heat way. John Cena and Logan Paul, when they show up, very positive and negative. Sami Zayn, always consistent, just like Kevin Owens is. Drew McIntyre might be falling down a little bit, kind of doing the same shtick. Gunther maybe in that way. And then R-Truth has to always be on the bubble for anything.
Speaking of shame shtick, but we love R-Truth.
But we do love R-Truth. So that has been the... Got to stop that right there. That has been the Yeah We Know podcast, part of the Morgan Knows Podcasting Network. You are in the ring with Jimmy, Chris, and Rod. However, we have a special kind of a Morgan ending here, right, Rod?
That is right, Jimmy. Thank you very much. We've had some big events here recently, right? We've had the Super Bowl, we've had the NBA All-Star Game, we had SNL 50, and this Sunday there is an event that you could argue used to be a big deal and is now no longer a big deal. I myself used to follow it quite closely. I did many podcasts that are available in the back catalogs of this very feed where I talked an awful lot about the Oscars. I used to even place bets on it. We would have pools. It was something that I was incredibly interested in. But recently, I have fallen off a little bit with the Oscars. And so that got me thinking, why is that? So I posed to you, gentlemen. Let's try to come up with what has happened to the Oscars. And here's how we're going to frame this, okay? I'm now going to list for you 10 movies that won the Best Picture Academy Award between the years of 1990 and 1999. All right? Are you boys ready? Dances with Wolves, The Silence of the Lambs, Unforgiven, Schindler's List, Forrest Gump, Braveheart, The English Patient, Titanic, Shakespeare in Love, American Beauty. Falling off a little bit there at the end, but still fairly strong movies. All right. Now, here are the last 10 movies that won the same identical Best Picture Oscar. Oppenheimer, which is okay, actually. I'm not opposed to Oppenheimer. Good job last year, Academy. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Coda, Nomadland, Parasite, Green Book, The Shape of Water, Moonlight, Spotlight, Birdman. Not exactly Murderer's Row there with the last 10. So, Jimmy, I said that to you guys earlier this week. I asked you to tell me, what do you think has happened in the Oscars, Jimmy?
Well, they went away, as you can see on our list here. For those of you watching, they went away from the classics and just giving it to these just movies no one watches. I mean, obviously there's some pretty decent ones in there, but if you look at the worldwide gross for all the movies in the 1990s, nobody was under what $200 million, $159 million. That was a western, by the way, that won that. And if you look at what's been recently, we had a well, Coda was an Apple TV movie, but still, I mean, no one saw that movie in the theater. They've gone away from what works, and that's just get the all time greats out there and get the wins in there. I don't understand why they did that, Rod.
So if you had to point to why you think smaller movies have won, do you think that it is less movies being made? Because that's definitely not it, right? More movies are being made. So I find it incredibly interesting that when we have more movies to choose from, we have somehow gotten smaller. Chris, I'll pose the same question to you. What do you think has happened? Those movies from the 90s are absolute unassailable bangers. And those last 10, I hadn't heard of a couple of them until I got reminded.
Right. So I went back and looked, and I think there's of those movies from the 90s. I can say that I haven't seen 100% of those movies. Maybe some scenes, but I haven't seen everything. Never watched Shakespeare in Love, for example. So there you go. Of the last 10, there was 6 or 7 of them that I have not seen, right? And when you go to look at the nominees, right, go to the nominees of these past 10 years, and there's even a greater percentage of movies I've either never heard about nor seen. Okay. I can think of 3 movies in the last 10 years that won that were good movies. Green Book, good movie. Spotlight, good movie. And then Oppenheimer, right? I think it's content saturation, Rod. I really do. We have way too many places for, your big name stars to go to make movies. And because there's too many places to get content, these content creators need the most clicks. And that's going to end up being a type of movie that historically the Oscars don't like for nominations on the Academy Awards. So you're not getting good, well known movies anymore.
Chris, I think you're on to something there with streaming, right? And what's weird about streaming is yes, you have a Coda win, but if you look back at the most of those over the last 10 years, not a lot of streaming movies have been honored by the Academy, right? They've kind of had a little bit of resistance to it. What I think streaming has actually done to the movies is TV. Okay. I think if you look back, right, something like The English Patient, right, something like Shakespeare in Love, something like The Silence of the Lambs, right, those kind of movies, something like Unforgiven, these movies now, they're 4, 6, or 8 episode limited series, right? That's what they are, right? Because they get to blow them out. They can sell advertisement for the 4 to 6 weeks that they're on or whatever. They can have a star, Chris. You pointed it out there. There's more places for all these stars to do it. And if you only make them shoot a limited series over 6 episodes, they just have to show up like it is a movie, but you get more content out of it. So I think the streaming is to blame, and I think TV is to blame here. Jimmy, your thoughts?
American Beauty is White Lotus. I mean, 100%. It's a 6 to 8 episode miniseries right now. You're never getting those in the theater because people are scared that no one's going to come and watch them. That's the issue. Theaters have to have the big Marvel movies. Oh, wait a minute. That's also gone down because people got sick of them. So maybe we can start seeing a trend to go back to these really big movies. And if you look at the 90s, Rod, Dances with Wolves, huge movie, big landscapes, lot goes into that. Same with Unforgiven, Schindler's List, Forrest Gump, Braveheart, English Patient, Titanic. Look at all those movies; they're just huge uh, escapes. And then if you look on the ones that just came
Yeah,
out,
have you guys seen Nomadland? Honestly, have you guys seen Nomadland?
no, as Chris said, I saw Oppenheimer, huge movie by the way, as
Sure.
far as scale and
Oh
the
yeah.
the scope of things. And I watched about 10 minutes of Birdman, and then I really wanted to watch Birdman when it came out. I couldn't handle it. I stopped watching. That's it. I haven't seen
Nomadland
anything else on that list.
Nomadland, dude, like Nomadland and Moonlight are just like you watch those movies and you're like, wait a minute, these won the best picture because again, you compare those kind of movies to what's happening in Titanic, it's amazing. So Chris, I think you're onto something with budgets here. Jimmy, I think you hit something else that people would talk an awful lot about, right? Marvel, IP, sequels, reboots, right? You have these huge movie studios that are just less averse at risk. So they say to themselves, I've got to spend all of this money for actors and insurance and location and special effects and all of that. I need this thing to come back to me tenfold. We can't afford to take a risk. What's the next comic book? What's the last movie? What's a cool TV show nobody's rebooted? What's a video game? Chris, how much does the IPization of Hollywood factor in, do you think?
Well, it's a lot because you're essentially taking away a lot of studio resources, right? So they have to make sure that these big budget get their butts into seats actually return that investment. And then what end up having to do then is they're not able to then invest in the smaller, for lack of a better term, art house type movies that would normally win those studios the Oscars, right? So I think you're taking resources away from some other type of movies that should be made.
Well, I think also, Chris, just it can even be simpler, not just resources, but actors, right? You have actors like Chris Evans and Mark Ruffalo and Scarlett Johansson, right? You have like and Robert Downey Jr., you have well respected actors who could be doing movies like what we talked about in the 90s, and they're stuck playing comic book characters. So, Jimmy, do you think the trimming of streaming services that we are all told is coming, right? That some of these are going to fold, that some of these are going to come together. Do you think we might be able to go back to where a few more movies are made? And let's just be honest about our ages here. These movies from the 90s, they didn't mind if guys like us went out to the theaters and saw them. They were making movies for guys and women in their 35 to 50 to go see movies. Nobody does that anymore. Do you think we got a chance of them coming back, Jimmy Jam? Let's leave the people with some hope.
Yes, it's all cycles. Okay, everything happens and it always comes back. So yes, they're going to go and they're going to have another couple really good R-rated comedies that come out that really hit hard. It's started the past couple years, but there's going to be a huge one that comes out. There's going to be another unbelievable murder mystery type thing that comes out that people are going to go to, and then those big landscape movies. Yes, they are coming back.
Yeah, you also hit on something too, Rod, where things like for sure Braveheart would not be made into a movie today, right? That'd probably be a 4 season episode or
Yeah.
4 season series on Max. You know, Unforgiven, definitely a series. Forrest Gump, definitely a series. But some of the things too, when you have things like Forrest Gump, Braveheart, Schindler's List, Unforgiven, like those are for us as American, those are member berries. Like, hey, remember this in our history, remember this in our history, remember this. You get way less of that in the most recent list as well. You get some of it in Spotlight and the Green Book, but that's about it. Maybe Nomadland, because I think that has to do with the financial crisis from '08. But that's about it.
Yeah, Nomadland's definitely about poverty and for sure it's trying to say something in that for
Uplifting.
sure. And I think we've come to a good consensus here, right? Like movies and things are going to shift over times. I think the Academy Awards are the only way we have of trying to spotlight movies. I think movies still hold an important place in society, right? They tell you something about culture. They hopefully hint at things coming up. They also shine a spotlight on what people find entertaining and apparently what we found entertaining over the last 10 years or what the Academy has felt was art has strayed away from what it was in the 90s. I'm smart enough to realize, and Chris, I love that you said there, the berries there, that a lot of this could just be we're nostalgic for what we remember from back in the day. That happens to everybody. So that's definitely possible. But I'll be tuning into the Oscars just to keep kind of an eye on it. And then some of the movies and the clips might catch my eye, and then I'll turn around and watch them. Like you could convince me to see Conclave. That's a movie that I've heard a little bit about, right? I guess there's a twist ending at the end of it. So I mean, you could convince me to see that. You got some Tucci, you got some Ray Fiennes, some good actors. So that to me is a movie a little bit like what we were speaking about from the 90s. So I'm excited for that. But everybody says the movie that's going to win is Anora, which is exactly like the movies we've talked about from the last 10 years. So who knows?
Yep.
Jimmy, any closing thoughts?
I just glad that we are back after our little hiatus and expect weekly shows coming up. We've got a lot of NBA intrigue for sure. I'm hearing every single night from my daughter. Steph Curry's got 43 points in the third quarter. What's going on, Dad? I love that. So the kids are really liking it. We've got so much wrestling coming up. It's a road to WrestleMania, and it's gonna be a really good time. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Follow us on all our social medias, including our TikTok, which is depending on the day, people either really love us or they really hate us.
Chris, how about you? Any closing thoughts here?
The Academy needs to go back to 5 nominations for Best Picture, make it a
Okay.
little bit more exclusive, maybe have a little bit less of, because most of these movies that are nominated, I have never heard of.
So Chris is for the red velvet ropes outside of the club, keeping people from getting inside. You know what? And you might not be wrong there, Chris. You might not be wrong. And Jimmy mentioned all of our things. There's one other that I should mention. You can check out themorganunknow.com. That is where the Mrs. Morgan You Know has her written work, the My Ambitions as a Writer blog, and she has a doozy up right now, folks. It has been an unprecedented time in America. I will leave it at that. And the Mrs. Morganino has some thoughts with how to deal with an onslaught of news. So check that out over at themorganino.com. There's a link to it on our Facebook page. You can check us out there. You can check us out on Twitter. You can check us out on YouTube, Twitch. We are out there trying to do it for you. Thank you so much for taking some time this evening to join us live later on YouTube or in your earbuds or just flat out through your speakers, however you're listening. We appreciate it. Till next time, I'm Rod saying bye.
Goodbye, Internet.
All right. Well, I think
I was
we
about
got
ready to